Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins electric wide receiver, is riding a storm of questions heading into the team's crucial Monday night showdown with the Los Angeles Rams. For a player who's been a relentless force on the field, suddenly, he's in the spotlight for an entirely different reason: his wrist injury. Fans, coaches, analysts, they're all asking the same thing. Can Hill pull through, and what does this injury mean for a Dolphins team fighting for a playoff push? Hill's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, went on South Florida's WSVN to give updates on his client's condition. Usually, Rosenhaus might be the one to brush off the concerns, keep things positive, keep everyone calm. But his tone this time was different, subdued, even cautious. You could tell there was something else lurking behind his words. Sure, he reassured everyone that Hill was doing everything in his power to suit up, emphasizing how critical this game is for Miami. But when the question came about the severity of Hill's injury and even the possibility of surgery if things get worse, Rosenhaus's response was less than comforting. He dodged it. You'd expect an agent to laugh it off if surgery was outlandish. But Rosenhaus didn't dismiss it. He didn't reassure. All he said was that it was not something I'm prepared to discuss publicly, steering away from the subject with a vague statement that this is something for Hill, his family, and the Dolphins to tackle internally. Not exactly a confidence booster for a team and fan base watching their playoff chances ride on Hill's ability to play. The mystery thickened when Hill was absent from practices ahead of the game, missing 2 in a row. It wasn't until Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel shed a bit more light that the picture started to come together. According to McDaniel, Hill's wrist issues go back to a practice with the Washington Commanders in August. Yes, August. The injury has been lingering, possibly festering, as Hill has fought through it week after week. But now, just when Miami's season is teetering on the edge, the injury flared up dramatically during last week's tight game against the Buffalo Bills, a crushing 30-27 loss. In the second half of that game, Hill reached for his left wrist after a run by Raheem Mostert. For a moment, he left the field, clutching his arm, making fans across the stadium hold their breath. But then, like the resilient playmaker he is, Hill returned to the field and made a massive 28-yard catch, setting up a critical field goal for the Dolphins. The crowd went wild, and for a second, all seemed well. But then the questions resurfaced. How serious is this injury? And if it was something that forced him off the field, however briefly, should fans be worried about the weeks to come? To add to the speculation, Dr. Jesse Morse, known as the Fantasy Doc on social media, weighed in based on what he's seen and heard. Morse suggested that, while he hasn't examined Hill personally, surgery might be on the table to fully fix the problem. That's the last thing any Dolphins fan wants to hear. Surgery would not only jeopardize Hill's availability in the short term, but could risk derailing the remainder of his 2024 season altogether. And here's the irony: Hill has been a rock for Miami since he arrived in 2022. He's rarely missed a game. In fact, since joining the Dolphins, he's only missed one game, last season against the New York Jets, a game Miami managed to win without him. But that was an anomaly. Hill's presence on the field changes everything for the Dolphins, creating opportunities, opening up the field, and making defenses scramble. So even the mere thought of his absence sends a chill through the team and fans alike. Let's talk about the season Hill has been having before this wrist injury turned everything upside down. Up until Week 8, he hadn't missed any games for injury, aside from an occasional rest day. Miami has relied on him every week, and he's been a constant threat, racking up yardage, showing that explosive speed, breaking tackles, and keeping the Dolphins' offense unpredictable. But now, it looks like the injury report might become a more frequent place for Hill's name, especially if he's trying to power through wrist pain week after week. Injuries are a part of the game, everyone gets that. But the timing of this couldn't be worse for Miami. Sitting at a critical point in the season, the Dolphins are trying to solidify their playoff push, and every game counts. Hill's current stats put him on track for around 948 yards, meaning he might miss the 1,000-yard mark for only the third time in his 9-season NFL career. That alone shows how hard he's been pushing to stay on the field and contribute, but the question now becomes, at what cost? A season that started with high hopes, thrilling wins, and a chance to make some real noise in the AFC is now shadowed by uncertainty. The Dolphins' offense revolves around Hill's ability to stretch the field, to make big plays out of thin air. If he's sidelined or even playing at less than 100%, it changes the whole dynamic. Miami needs Hill, not just as a player, but as the spark that ignites the entire offensive strategy. So where does this leave the Dolphins heading into Monday night? Sure, they've got other weapons. Raheem Mostert has shown he can make things happen, and there are other talented players ready to step up. But Hill is their X factor. If he's not out there in full form, it's like the Dolphins are going into battle without their sharpest sword. And fans can't help but wonder, is this the beginning of a downward spiral or just another hurdle for Hill to jump? The Dolphins faithful will have their eyes glued to every play, every snap, every movement Hill makes on the field against the Rams. They'll be watching to see if he grimaces, if he's favoring that wrist, if he's got the same explosion off the line. And if he's not there? The entire city of Miami might just collectively hold its breath, hoping this isn't the blow that derails a season that promised so much. If Tyreek Hill steps onto that field Monday night, every eye in the stadium, every fan at home, will be scrutinizing his every move, every catch, every cut. Is he still the Tyreek we know, the lightning-quick, fearless playmaker, or is this injury forcing him to hold back? Will that wrist be a factor in how he plays? Fans know that even a slight hesitation or any limit on Hill's explosive style could spell trouble. There's this nagging tension building up among fans and analysts alike, a sense that the Dolphins are walking a tightrope. They're trying to balance their need for Hill's contributions with the risk of worsening his injury. And this tightrope isn't just about one game against the Rams, it's about preserving Hill's health for a stretch of games that could determine the entire season. This is the kind of balancing act that makes or breaks a season. This situation brings us to the crux of it all. Just how much does Miami need Hill? Statistically, we can see his impact in terms of yardage and catches. But what stats can't show is the energy he brings, that buzz in the stadium every time he lines up, the way he draws defenders to him, opening up the field for other players. Without him, Miami's offense loses that unpredictability, that fear factor. It's hard to replace a player like Hill, who can turn any pass into a highlight reel moment, who forces defenses to keep second-guessing, opening up opportunities for his teammates in ways that only a handful of players in the league can. Then there's the bigger, unspoken question, how much does Hill want this? The Dolphins are making their playoff push, and Hill knows exactly what his presence means for the team. We've seen him push through injuries before, sacrificing his body for the sake of the game, but at what point does it become too much? When does playing hurt cross the line from toughing it out to risking something that could derail his season or even his career?